Upon the creation of the German Empire in 1871, the various states that were incorporated into the empire brought with them their history, culture, armies, industries, and critically to us, navies. Before the creation of the empire, the various northern German states, notably Prussia, had been building more modern warships, like central battery ironclads and gunboats. The new empire under Prussian leadership had to protect its trade and coastline. Still, the Prussians had never been known as a seafaring nation. Through the coming years of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they would go on to become a premier naval power, creating powerful battleships and, important to us, battlecruisers, or more apt for the Kaiser Le Marine, Panzerkreuzer, or Genkreuzer, depending on the time of development. In today's video, we'll cover the development of Germany's battlecruisers. In terms of completed ships, that is from Derfflinger to Hindenburg. Derfflinger. The German effort for a new design for the large cruiser started in 1910. The German Naval Department went searching for a new design with some characteristics in mind, namely, the increase in caliber of the main battery guns. Because the British had upped their guns to 13.5 inches or 343 millimeters, the Germans in response decided that 12-in or 305mm guns would be an appropriate response. Now, initially some felt this increase was not necessary, namely the State Secretary Admiral von Tirpitz, due to several factors including the cost of the increase and his belief that battle rages would not increase to 10,000 meters or more. He argued that 11 inches or 283mm guns of the previous ships were perfectly suitable for the ranges he envisaged. But after some time and some convincing, Admiral Tirpitz was persuaded. Another major debate was the arrangement and number of turrets. Some wanted 4, others 5, and some wanted the turrets to be in wing positions. Eventually, they decided on 4 turrets along the center line of the ship, 2 turrets forward and 2 turrets aft. Other arguments continued about the armor arrangement and thickness. Those were worked out as the various design options were presented and adjusted. One more major debate in the Navy Department continued, whether the ship should have oil-fired boilers or purely coal-fired ones. People who argued for oil said it would be more efficient and would save on manpower as you would not need stokers on board. On the other hand, the people who argued for coal said that in a time of war, coal was more readily available, and Germany wouldn't have to rely on imports. The designers came to a compromise. 8 of the single coal-fired boilers would be replaced by 4 double-ended oil-fired boilers. I know what I said earlier, but some more debates about the armor scheme occurred, with some questioning the effect of detonating shells on and inside the hull. One of the Naval Department members said, "One must expect that the ship will fill with water forward. Leaks will occur that cannot be sealed with the means available on board. The ship's outer hull to which the armor is secured will undoubtedly leak, and the folks ahead of the citadel will certainly fail. It could not be kept drained with the means available on board." This comes from Gary Staff's book, German Battlecruisers of World War I, Their Design, Construction, and Operations. Keep that quote in mind as it will be important to Derfflinger and especially her sister, Lützow. By early September 1911, the design was ready. Derfflinger had a normal displacement of 26,600 tons and a displacement of 31,200 tons full load. She was powered by 14 coal-fired boilers and 4 pure oil-fired boilers, providing steam for 4 turbines that drove 4 screws, giving the ship a designed 63,000 shaft horsepower. But in reality, the ship could reach 76,634 shaft horsepower, giving the ship a top speed of 26.5 knots. Her armament consisted of 8 12-in or 305mm 50 caliber guns in twin turrets, with 2 forward and 2 aft. She also carried 12 5.9-in or 150mm 45 caliber guns, along with 12 3.5-in or 88mm 45 caliber guns, and 4 underwater torpedo tubes, 1 stern tube, 2 broadside, and 1 bow tube. In common with other German battlecruisers, she had an extensive armor scheme with a main belt of anywhere from 100mm to 300mm or 3.9-in to 11.88. Depending on the card of the ship, her deck would vary anywhere from 30mm to 80mm or 1.2-in to 3.1-in thick. Her turrets had a face thickness of 270 millimeters, or 10.6 in thick. The sides were 225 millimeters, or 8.9 in thick. The rear was 260 millimeters, or 10.2 in thick. The sloping roof was 110 million thick, or 4.3 in, and the horizontal roof was 80 millimeters thick, or 1.2 in thick. She was laid down in March 1912, launched in June 1913, and commissioned into the fleet on September 1st, 1914. An interesting quote from Gary Staff is as follows: "The final design of Derfflinger was a striking ship, and with it, German shipbuilders reached a pinnacle as far as completed pensos, battlecruisers, were concerned. This class of breathships is often regarded as the best all-around capital ship of the period, and aesthetically is amongst the most handsome. Lützow, the following battlecruiser, Lützow, wasn't too different from Derfflinger. Her machinery was almost the same as Derfflinger. The high-pressure turbines were found in the forward turbine rooms and drove the two outer shafts. The low-pressure turbines in the aft turbine room drove the inner shafts. Giving steam to the turbines was the boiler plant, consisting of 14 coal-fired boilers and 4 pure oil-fired ones, giving her a design shaft horsepower of 63,000 and a maximum of 80,998, with a top speed on her trials of 26.4 knots. The difference between Lützow and Derfflinger was that Lützow had an increased coal capacity of up to 3,700 tons. As for armor, it was exactly the same as Derfflinger, with the main belt of anywhere from 100 millimeters to 300 millimeters, or 3.9 inches to 11.8 inches depending on the part of the ship. Her deck was anywhere from 30 millimeters to 80 millimeters, or 1.2 inches to 3.1 inches thick. Her turrets had a face thickness of 270 millimeters, or 10.6 inches thick. The sides were 225 millimeters, or 8.9 inches thick, and the rear was 260 millimeters, or 10.2 inches thick. As for armaments, she carried the same 8 30.5 centimeters, or 12 inches 50 caliber guns in twin turrets, 2 forward and 2 aft, while the medium caliber armament of 15 centimeters, or 5.9 inch, guns of Lützow consisted of 14, as compared to the 12 found in Derfflinger. Another change was that Lützow, as completed, had no 88mm guns as anti-torpedo boat defenses or anti-aircraft guns. In April of 1916, she was equipped with 88mm flat guns. Her underwater torpedo armament was the same layout as Derfflinger, with 1 stern tube, 1 bow tube, and 1 on either side of the ship. Hindenburg. Like the other German battlecruisers, the story of the Hindenburg starts a year earlier in 1912, under the name Hatta, where the large cruiser of 1913 was discussed in a meeting on May 31st, 1912. Several proposed modifications to the ship were discussed, including new rangefinders like the ones found in the new battleships Bayern and Boden. New turret construction, the reorganization of the engineering spaces, an increase in the number of 15 centimeters or 5.9-inch guns from 14 to 18, with the reduction of 88mm guns from 12 to 8. Improvements to the torpedo battery, including the removal of the stern tube and it being replaced by 2 aft ones on a different angle, along with an increase in speed and armor protection. Now, not all of these changes were adopted, and in German battlecruisers of World War I, their design, construction, and operations by Gary Staff, His Excellency, the Herr, State Secretary Gross Admiral von Tirpitz, made the following decisions regarding the proposals. A completely new design as would be required by an extension of the citadel or casemate or other alterations to the ship's form should be avoided at all costs. The diesel dynamo should not be moved, as this would require an extension of the citadel. To guard against fires, the diesel oil stock should be reduced and insulated. The number of 15cm guns should not exceed 14, and 8.8cm guns should be 8. The ammunition outfit for the 8.88cm would remain 250 shots per gun. The armament would be as for Assatz, Kaiser and Auster, or the Lützow. Other ideas were taken into consideration for the new ship, like a reduction in the thickness of the bow armor to compensate for the weight increase due to the new turret construction and increased torpedo caliber, along with considerations for an increase in the size of the main battery to 35 centimeters or 15-inch guns, the cost and size. Increase required for such a change was not acceptable for the time being. Still, several changes did occur that were approved by the Kaiser in April of 1913. These being 1. A quick loading device for the broadside torpedoes was installed, which consequently meant the armor deck above the broadside room was set higher by half a meter. 2. A searchlight was added to the foremast. 3. The middle passageway was laid out for better isolation of the 15-centimeter munitions chamber lying in the boiler bunkers. 4. The ventilators for the boiler rooms were all apart from 2 below the armor deck for the greater part in the boiler bunkers. 5. The crew number was increased by 50. 6. The central superstructure on the upper deck was lengthened for better cabin accommodation. The armor of Hindenburg was similar to that of Derfflinger. However, the sloping of the turret roofs was 150 mm instead of the 110 mm found on Derfflinger. Bow. Armor was changed along with the changes to the forwardmost armor being thicker and attached to riveting instead of bolting. As mentioned earlier, the armament of Hindenburg was different from that of the other two in this class. Differing in several ways, the turret hood was done away with, and only one bearing telescope between the two guns. The manual backup for traversing the turret was replaced with an auxiliary electric drive. This performed better than the previous manual drive, again taking from Gary's staff here. The elevation of the guns was 5.5 degrees to 16.5 degrees from the outset. The major difference in the turrets compared to Derfflinger and Lützow was that all turrets were arranged with elevators the same as the 4D turrets of those ships. The shell elevators ran from the shell loading position to a position between the barrels in the vicinity of the locks. The shell was pushed by a mechanical reloader to the after of the loading tray, which swung the shell. Behind the breech, a hydraulic rammer pushed home the shell. Each elevator could service either gun. Another important change was the streamlining of the elevators servicing the guns, saving weight and increasing the speed of loading. Hindenburg's machinery was similar to that of Derfflinger and Lützow. The changes were made in the arrangement of the boilers, where the coal-fired boilers went versus where the poor oil-fired ones went. As for her particulars, she was laid down on October 1, 1913, launched on August 1, 1915, and commissioned on May 10, 1917, having a design displacement of 26,947 tons and a full load displacement of 31,500 tons. Her machinery consisted of 2 sets of turbines and 4 turbine rooms with high-pressure turbines driving the outer shafts and a low-pressure set driving the inboard shafts. Steam was provided by 14 coal-fired boilers and 4 pure oil-fired boilers, giving her a designed maximum shaft horsepower of 72,000 and an actual maximum of 95,777 for design top speed of 26.6 knots, and essentially the same maximum on her trials. Her armament consisted of 8 30.5 centimeters or 12-inch guns and twin turrets, 2 turrets forward and 2 turrets aft. The secondary battery was made up of 14 15-centimeter or 5.9-inch guns and casemates, and the light artillery consisted of 4 88mm flat guns grouped around the forefunnel. Rounding out the armament were 4 torpedo tubes and an increased number and torpedoes carry. Typically, I would go into the armor scheme of the ship, but it's so similar to the other ships that there's no need to repeat myself. However, I do think it's appropriate to split up the series into 3 parts, so we can dedicate a whole video to the incomplete battlecruisers. Conclusion: like my videos on all 3 of these ships, I'll leave you with a quote, as I think it's an appropriate end. The quote coming from German battlecruisers of World War I, in design, construction, and operations by Gary's staff. The final design of Derfflinger was a striking ship, and with it, German shipbuilders reached a pinnacle as far as completed pensive battlecruisers were concerned. This class of 3 ships is often regarded as the best all-around capital ship of the period, and aesthetically is amongst the most handsome. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, as it'll help the channel to grow. And until next time, my friends, have a great day.